Bang, bang. I'm here with Adam Draper. Thank you so much for coming.
Bang, bang.
Bang, bang. You have to start out everyone bang, bang. Everyone's just like, bang, they're paying attention
I'm going to do sci-fi. I'm here with Pomp.
Yeah, perfect. I'd rather be called Adam Draper. It's a cooler name than Pomp. Arkansas, what up on the live stream? All right, so here we go. Ready?
That's a good use. Okay, continue.
What's your background?
Okay, my background.
Everyone knows you as the man who wears orange pants, but you're actually way more substance underneath those pants. That sounds weird.
Oh, God. This is so refreshing. I got to say, thank you for having me on this. I've been, up and down talking to endowments and all these places that you
serious people with suits and ties.
Yeah, and the energy. You guys have good energy here.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, my background is so in between high school and college, I'm going way back. I played tennis in Australia.
All right.
For 10
Were you
months.
good?
I was good.
Right.
I mean, I was trying to go pro, and then I
really?
Yeah. And then
I'm not playing you then. I was going to play you if you were bad, so I got an ego boost.
And then I ended up at UCLA, and I was an English major, and I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Okay.
And then basically I was forced into the English major. I had enough credits and units towards that. Education. We can talk about education if you want to.
I'm waiting for someone to have a Twitter major rather than English major. Twitter major would be so valuable.
That's what people should write on their resumes.
Yeah.
That would be brilliant. And then, so my background was I started a company. It was called Expert Financial with a guy named Thomas Foley. And we were a secondary market for private securities. Actually, at the same time, Barry Silbert, who's at DCG, I don't know if he's been on this. He should.
He is not. We're going to get him on.
Okay. I just saw him yesterday, and he's great. And he was working at Second Market. He started Second Market, and we were sort of competitive in this secondary market for private security space. And I went on, and after about 4.5 years of running Expert Financial, it did end up selling to a company called Venovate.
Okay.
Venovate was bought by a company called King. Oh my God, what was it called? Keystone. Keystone was bought by
Coinbase recently
for Experts ATS that we had. So it technically came full circle, but because I invested in Coinbase, so the value chain works. After Expert Financial, I realized that I had a lot of fun mentoring startups and not doing what I did and making mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes when starting a company.
What was the biggest mistake you made when you started the company?
I think in a regulated space. So we were a broker dealer. We had to be a broker dealer to be able to transact securities. The biggest mistake that we made was using the SEC as a product manager, so like having their input on like how it should be working, so that it is like regulated and secure, rather than just, if I were to go back and do it, I would not be paid, and I would try to facilitate a lot of transactions of secondary. So I would go through the process. Paul Graham says do things that don't scale. Same system. I would go through that system once, and then I do it again, and then you use technology to enhance the process. You don't start with the technology.
Yep.
And so I would say,
you should talk to a lot of crypto people. They're got a little backwards there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, yes. Yeah, that is a key thing. You need to understand who your customer is.
Yep.
So, like, one of the lead things when people reach out cold to me in an email, they say like what they do, or they lead with, the worst was in 2017, 2018 when they were leading with how much money they had raised.
Yeah.
It was like ICO, only 1 million left, raised 18 or whatever. And it's like, I don't even know what you do, and you've been writing for 3 sentences.
I'll take it one step further. It was like people would show up and they'd send you a thing like, hey, we have 27,000 people on our Telegram channel.
Yeah. Like that's a
like,
metric.
Oh, okay, congratulations.
That's a metric of success.
By the way, what do you do?
And so what I ask them now is I say, who's your customer?
Yep.
Because at the end of the day, like, I actually find that most startups, most crypto or otherwise, don't actually know who the end customer is.
Yep.
And most of the time, it's not who you think it is. And so that ends up being a very intuitive question to see how far along they are in the process. If they can succinctly tell me, this is who my customer is, this is the demographic, and this is how much money we make off of them, you're further along than almost anyone.
Absolutely. What did after you sold the company, what did you do next?
So I founded what was the first ever crowdfunding website for equity.
Really?
It was called Boost Funder.
Okay.
Okay, and then what I realized was, I'm going deeper than I probably need to.
No.
How long is this supposed to be? I could be
We go
talking
for a while.
ages.
Yeah, we might go 4 hours.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Unless I got to go to the bathroom, then I'm leaving.
But I'll still be here. So I founded Boost Funder, and it was basically my way of going, okay, the SEC regulators, they only care if you're actually making money.
Yep.
So like if you're taking a fee, they think that greed is involved. So I was like, I'm not going to take a fee. I'm going to match investors and entrepreneurs online. And so I launched it, but I realized that there was a discrepancy between what an investor needs to invest and what an entrepreneur, the level the entrepreneur thinks they are at to get investment. And so I was like, you know what? The best way to solve this is actually offline.
Okay.
And so that led to Boost, which founded as an accelerator, but now is a pre-seed fund focused on investing in sci-fi technologies.
Okay. Before we get to Boost, let's talk about Coinbase.
Okay.
Because you invested, I think you were the first investor?
Yes, I was the first investor.
Okay.
They did go through YC, though.
Okay.
So technically YC.
Describe what your experience with Bitcoin, crypto, etc. was pre-Coinbase, and then let's talk about the Coinbase investment.
Okay. That part is a good question because it's very short.
Okay.
I had no previous experience in digital Bitcoin currencies.
Okay.
So I got a list of companies that sent to me. And I read through all the descriptions, and one of them said marketplace for digital currencies. And I said, I do not know what that is. What is a digital currency? I don't know what that is. And so I cold emailed Brian Armstrong at Coinbase.
Founder, CEO.
Yeah, founder, CEO. And I said, and I wrote this email sort of making myself sound better than I was. And I'd invested in a couple companies before Coinbase. And I said those in the email, and then I said, "Do you want to meet for coffee?" I met at we did. We met at a place called Red Rock, which is in Mountain View. Mm-hmm. I highly recommend it. It's a good coffee place. It's got good coffee. And then
he said that like he's sponsored by Red
Rock. But I like to thank them because I've invested in 3 companies who I met at Red Rock, who total market cap today are worth like $10 billion or something. So
founders should only come to the meeting.
Only go to Red Rock. That's the collective valuation. And Brian said one thing, and he said a lot of things about his background. I've sort of an emerging theory about entrepreneurs, and it's like rational people doing irrational things. Or irrational people doing rational things also works. But Brian Armstrong, he left Airbnb.
Okay.
And at that point, it was $1 billion company. He was one of the first 100 employees. And he had started 2 companies previously. So like this founder looks on paper very like rational.
Yep.
And when I was talking to him, he was very rational. But what he said to me was at some point, the world is going to be on one financial infrastructure. And the concept of that means all of the countries have to have a connected financial infrastructure, mm-hmm. which is an insane concept. Mm-hmm. And he's saying Bitcoin, at that time, Bitcoin is going to be that financial infrastructure. And he was referring to himself and saying what Coinbase is the gateway. Mm-hmm. It would be the Netscape to the browser to the internet. And I just started to obsess over this concept of a connected financial infrastructure. And so what I did was I did diligence, and I started talking to other people in the Bitcoin world. He referred me to a couple people, and I talked to a couple more people.
Who were the people that you talked to?
So I talked to someone it was a founder at, his name was Laron, who was at, it was an app search engine at the time called Quixie. He was the CTO. And then I talked to Bill Bardite, who runs Abra now. Yep. I talked to it was a bunch of people who are now like, thought leaders in the space actually. And the overarching consensus that I felt was this is the most dynamic community of people. Like whether or not the technology is there, like these are like some of the most dynamic people, smartest. By dynamic I mean like smartest, but also like passionate about changing the world. Mm-hmm. And a little crazy, like all of them were a little crazy, but they all have these backgrounds. Like my first experiences with Bitcoin were not drug deals or anything like that. It was literally like people with 15 years of experience in finance.
Trying to buy coffee with Bitcoin at Red Rock?
Yeah, trying to buy a coffee with Bitcoin at Red Rock. And Red Rock, I need to go there again. I need to start having my meetings there. We'll buy the building at some point and just be like, Perfect. Have all my meetings. It'll be a co-working space. We'll do it together, Pomp.
Right, that's fine.
And so that was my story with Coinbase. I ended up investing because of the dynamic community, as well as this just, rational person be doing unrational things. Irrational things.
Yeah. So Kanye, who is a legend on Twitter at this point, says, "Tell me a genius that isn't crazy." Mm-hmm. And there's an element of what you're describing that fits that in terms.
It's like they fit the. Yeah. It's like they are crazy. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong. All of them are crazy.
Yep.
But they come off as semi-rational.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Elon is like probably the perfect example. Like he actually, if you sit down and you listen to him talk, you're like, you know what? I could see how he could get through an entire conversation and say everything he just said with a straight face, and no one thinks he's crazy. But do you understand the guy just said that we're going to go to Mars?
Yeah.
That's fucking nuts.
That's what I'm talking about. Like the person. Exactly. Elon's a perfect example. But Elon's a perfect example where it's like on paper, he sold PayPal. He has this background of building and delivering, and then he says, "Oh, we're going to Mars."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Duh.
Elon's a perfect example.
All right. So as you're building Boost, let's go through how you actually. Well, what does Boost mean, by the way? First of all.
So Boost means
like BOOST, but not Boost Mobile, like the phone carrier.
That's so funny. We used to get a lot of overlap of people being like,
"Really?
Oh, you work at Boost Mobile." Early on in the people would tap me on the shoulder and be like, "Oh, you work at Boost Mobile."
Like my phone doesn't work, dude.
Boost Wireless. So Boost is a community of people. We have housing and office space.
Oh, okay.
In downtown San Mateo, and so in the Bay Area, in Silicon Valley. And we bring people from all over the world working in highly technical industries like crypto and virtual reality and oceans and space. And we bring them, and it's almost like a home base for companies and startups to be able to connect to Silicon Valley.
Okay.
So it's almost like they can live there, work there. Our accelerator program we run once a year, and the companies come in for 3 months and they live in the housing, work in the office space. We're running a program right now with 20 startups, 9 crypto, fantastic stuff, and and so that Boost. What I feel is that being for venture capital, being the connection to the entrepreneur at the earliest stage, closest to the idea, is the most powerful position to be. And so what we do is try to provide sort of a safe spot, a home base for those people to be able to really innovate in the Bay Area while also being able to connect to a network in Silicon Valley.
Got it. Why set up in San Mateo rather than San Francisco? For those that don't know, San Mateo is outside of the city. Think of it that way. And San Francisco is a city.
So one reason would be that we have the housing and office space there. The other reason
that's a good reason.
Yeah. So
that's where the building is. Okay.
That's where the building is. And since we've moved in, I've seen a whole cultural shift from San Mateo being a very sleepy town to listening in at coffee shops and deals are being done. And that's it was a seismic shift over the last 7 years of watching these different people come in and just change the world. And it's been fantastic to watch. YouTube, founded in San Mateo. AdMob, San Mateo. So Google only buys things that are started in San Mateo.
So that's like 2 things now, right?
That's 2 things.
Go to Red Rock, and then if you start a
Red
company
Rock,
in San Mateo,
San Mateo.
Google
You should.
will buy it.
It's got deep rooted DNA, but it also has Boost, and we're and now we've backed 300 startups.
Okay, all right. So you guys are accelerating companies. And you were also investing in companies that don't go through the accelerator as well.
Correct. So we started as an accelerator.
Okay.
And I found that to be the best way to to solve this problem of getting to know the entrepreneur earliest. And then we verticalized into Bitcoin and virtual reality. And then as we developed a brand and we started to understand that there were companies outside the accelerator who wouldn't join, who were third-time founders who are in the crypto space or the virtual reality space, we wanted to be able to invest in great people. And so being able to write a $250,000 to $500,000 check allows us to do that also.
And you're trying to invest as early as possible?
Always. We try to be first check. More than anything, we want to make the decision for ourselves. We always like to just say, like, we're the first decision. We say first check, but there could be someone else in. And, like, we just want to actively make the decision for ourselves whether or not we are investing.
Got it. Let's go to all the non-crypto stuff first.
Sure.
VR.
I have strong opinions on crypto also.
I know you do. That's why I'm going to save it till the end when you're tired.
Okay.
VR, AR, ocean, space. Like, you guys are going after all these different verticals. Let's start with VR and AR first.
Okay.
Why are you excited about
I think it's super important that we start with VR, AR first.
Okay. Why?
Okay. Here, let me stop you for a second. We're going to start with VR, AR. So
Adam has taken over the podcast.
So this week is actually GDC, which is the Gaming Developers Conference, and tons of it's VR now. Like almost like a huge segment of this conference that's one of the biggest gaming conferences in the world is taken over and is virtual reality.
Describe the difference between virtual reality and augmented reality for people that don't know.
Okay, so virtual reality is I am enclosing myself in a new world of digital proportions.
Like, you put goggles on.
You put full goggles on, and you don't see beyond your goggles. You could be in space. You could be in Athens, Greece.
It's like 100%,
100%
artificial or synthetic world.
Yeah,
right?
I like that synthetic world. Yeah. I deal with synthetic worlds.
I just made it up.
Yeah, augmented reality is overlaying data on our real world. I would say, like, if you played the Pokemon game, Niantic, they overlay little Pokemons on your phone, which is overlaid on the world. I would actually argue that the first major augmented reality platform is actually audio. So it's Alexa or AirPods, or because it's overlaying data on our world, it's just not visual. Virtual reality is very, very visual. It's very difficult to do like a radio version of virtual reality because it's fully immersive. It is, you are being teleported to this other place.
Dude, when Apple figures out the battery life on the AirPods, I'm never taking them out of my ear.
Right?
It's incredible.
They're training us.
It's
little
incredible.
at a time.
Oh, yeah. It's incredible.
Yeah.
But before we die, we die, are they gonna have implants?
You're already hooked into the AR. You're on an AR platform. That's augmented reality. So listening to podcasts, that's overlaying your world with
AR has multiple components, which can be visual and audio.
Completely.
Right? Actually,
and also, like, once they start tuning into like Google,
Yep.
And like saying where you are, that's a true AR application in Siri. Like if it starts to say like, hey, you're supposed to take a left turn to get into this building, go up 74 floors or whatever.
Go to the two elevators. Adam had some issues getting in, so we're gonna give him a hard time. I had to go get him in the lobby, and everyone looked at me weird. But so let me tell you this though. I went in LA, and I wish that I remembered the organization because I'd love to give them credit for this, but. It's a VR application, and this young kid was an advertising agency that I think his father ran. And he said to me, hey, come look at this. I want to show you this new demo. And so I went, this is probably 2.5 years ago, or maybe even 3 years ago now. And so he says, put these goggles on, put them on, and all of a sudden I'm standing on top of the Freedom Tower.
Yeah.
Right? And in it, all of a sudden, as soon as I put the goggles on, I started looking around, and I have headphones on, and I could hear wind.
Yeah.
And then he goes, move your right foot 6 inches to like basically
step off
you.
the ledge.
No, even better. And when I move my foot, there's a rope that they have laid on the ground while I put the goggles on. So now all of a sudden, my foot feels a rope. I see a rope as if I'm walking in between the two towers, and I hear wind. And when I go to move my feet, they turn on a light fan, and now the rest of my body feels wind blowing. So think about the sensory overload of like visual, audio, rope touching your foot, and you feel the wind. I wouldn't walk. No. I was like, no.
So it turns out it's like 9 out of 10 people don't walk.
I was like, I'm good. I'm out.
It's incredible. Actually, there's a new experience that's in. So we backed one called Spaces that's a Terminator experience, and then there's another one called Sandbox. And what they are group experiences where you're all tethered up. And you can see each other in virtual reality, and then you kill Terminators
Yep,
or
yeah,
zombies or whatever the escape the room of that experience is. It's really fascinating because it gives you a good experience of like anxiety and like things coming at you. There is what is crazy is so I think so 7 million high-end headsets were sold. Okay. So market size isn't that big, right? But I would argue that only half of them are actually set up. So smaller.
So they sold 7 million and 3.5 got set up.
Yeah, and I think so. I think 50% of them are set up. So 3.5 million are set up. I would argue that only 20% of them though are active. So that's like a market size of like 700,000. But there's a company that made $15 million last year in virtual reality. A third party built an application that is on all the devices that made $15 million.
On maybe 700,000 to
on 700,000 users. Like once we scale the actual numbers, like it is captivating. Like this stuff is great. And someone was asking me earlier today, when's the technology going to be good enough? Like it's good enough. It's just harder to use, and the new device that's coming out next month, I'm like an advertisement for Facebook. Facebook is releasing something called the Oculus Quest, and it's an all-in-one headset. You don't need a computer. You literally just unbox it, put it on your head, and you can do all the applications that basically everything that's been built for the high-end computer stuff.
So it's fascinating, the AirPod example, because audio is obviously exploding. And do you think that is because audio was exploding and then the device of an AirPod empowered more people to listen? Or do you think the AirPod creation empowers the explosion of audio? Like is it the medium or is it the device that leads the charge?
So I think it's about persistence.
Okay.
So I think... the difference between a laptop and a mobile phone are not that much different in computer power. It's basically like you have a computer in your pocket or a computer on device. But the main difference is context. So I work on my desktop when I need to sit down, and it's old world. Some people probably only run on their mobile phone. But the reason that the mobile phone took off so fast was that there were these intermittent spots where you could do work or play games. So the bathroom, the train.
I'm willing to bet that, what do you think, 10, maybe 20% of phone usage is in the bathroom?
Oh, I bet. For early adoption, I bet it was, of the smartphone, I bet it was like 50%.
Whoa.
For early adoption.
Yeah.
Now it would be less. It's like we're using it all the time.
Yeah.
But yes, I bet it was a huge part of it.
Yeah.
I always thought just like focusing on toilet games would be a great market.
That's fair.
And so by what I mean by it's about persistence though is like the mobile phone became more persistent than the desktop just on usability.
Yep.
And now we're moving to something that is currently could always be in your ears that is still accessing computer. And so you can suddenly start to see a world where we're talking to our phone constantly, and it's almost you could tether audio applications from your phone to your ears.
Dude, you know what I want so badly? Like, just give me the answers and tell me who the person is. Like, I want to leave the AirPods in, and when the AirPod knows...
Who you're meeting with?
Well, just not even who I'm meeting with, but just like you run into somebody, whether it's at a conference, on the street, in a coffee shop,
Dude,
Red Rock, right? Wherever.
We're definitely,
just tell me who the hell this person is.
I mean, the glasses are definitely going to do that.
Yep.
You would have to have a way of identifying which Bluetooth. I mean, like if people are enabled, like there's a way. There's a technical way.
If every system was connected, you could do it for sure.
Yeah.
But just like that's a use case, right? Directions definitely a use case. And the part that I always go to is like everyone's like, I would never get an implant in my brain. I'm like, bullshit. You're telling me that if all of a sudden you could think a question and get the thought and get the answer immediately, you wouldn't be interested in that?
I think yes.
Like you just have Google in your brain.
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about?
Well, also people have surgery that are just purely cosmetic. People will probably have surgery for
humans
like,
are actually really
enhancing.
irrational. Yeah, humans are actually really irrational, and it would be a very human thing to be like, oh, like yeah, sure, we'll like fix our noses and whatever, but not fix our brains.
Yeah, let's not put anything in my brain. That's too dangerous.
Yeah. Have you looked at Neuralink or like was it Kernel?
So Kernel, Neuralink. There's another one called Pandromics.
Okay, I don't know about that.
So I looked into that.
It's been a while since I've looked, like maybe 2 years almost.
Yeah, so I looked into the space. I mean, it's early. Like,
Yeah,
and
of course.
mostly
we just named the whole market.
That's
There's
the
like
whole
3
market.
companies.
And it is
Two of the best founders of our lifetime are working on them, but still.
And that's very, very true. And it's going to cost a lot of money, and it also, you have to go through medical compliance stuff.
Yep.
That's
Brian Johnson. For those that don't know, Brian Johnson sold Braintree. Right,
Yeah, I think
and he started Kernel, and it's basically an implantable device. I actually think they call it a mental prosthetic. Like, he's very careful about the way that he describes it, which is smart.
I like mental prosthetic.
But he committed, I think, $100 million of his own personal capital to fund this thing. So, like, expensive might be an understatement. Literally he couldn't raise the money; he had to personally put the money up.
Oh, completely. And I think it's going to be passionate people who are going to rational people doing irrational things. Who are going to change that industry?
Yeah.
And Elon, again, like, he's putting up. I think he's putting up most of the capital. I don't think he raised money for Neuralink. It's probably like the early days of the what's the hole one? The hole in the ground. The
Boring Company.
Boring Company.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I have a wild theory. I don't think that he's boring holes in the ground for traffic. I think he's practicing for Mars.
Oh, it's brilliant. He's like, we need to learn about this.
Well, so I think this is true, and of course Twitter will correct us if I'm wrong on this at some point. But I'm pretty sure.
Well, you're always right, and Twitter cannot be right.
No. As Twitter's reminded me many times, I'm usually not right. But I think that on Mars, it's going to be really difficult for us to live above ground based on some of the atmospheric conditions.
Yeah.
And so there's a theory that the best way, if we get to Mars, is to actually.
Have you read Red Rising?
No, I haven't. What's that?
Oh, fantastic series.
Okay.
And it's about basically what you're talking about,
Okay.
where we're going to be living beneath the surface of Mars, and
maybe this is where this theory came from then, or something.
No, I don't think. Well, maybe it could have been. It was it's a sci-fi book. Basically, everything in sci-fi books comes from
Very
the
true.
world builds those things.
Who says it? They're like, if you want to see the future, like look at sci-fi or something.
Yeah, I mean, Isaac Asimov basically predicted artificial intelligence, and he did in iRobot and in The Foundation, and then I'm trying to build magic with VR, and that's basically Harry Potter.
Did you see Ready Player One?
Oh yeah,
amazing,
fantastic.
Like probably one of the better movies I've seen in a while, and the way that it was done was just crazy enough that it was like, whoa, this is possible, and just rational enough where you could see like we're gonna get there.
After that movie came out, I was so happy because it's gonna translate what virtual reality is to millions of people who have never thought what it would be like.
Yeah. And
that's exactly what it is. And it worked really, really well. They did the headset stuff really well. They showed how the world's going to change, bad and good, really well.
I don't want to out this person, but there's an older gentleman that I'm just fascinated with. And one day I said something about virtual reality, and he goes, what are these young people talking about virtual reality? Don't you got that virtual reality on your computer? and what he meant was like, you're going into a virtual reality in your, like, it's not stuck to your face, but you are going into a virtual reality. And I was like, you're actually really right.
So the difference between the desktop and VR is immersion. So we currently interact with all this data through a window. So we're looking at a window to that data, where now we can actually fully immerse ourselves in that data and feel and experience it. I think that there are 3 things that VR is epic for, amazing for. The surprising one to me is fitness.
Oh yeah. What Tonal and a bunch of these are all getting close. Right?
We have FitXR, Box VR, the YUR. Like there are a couple. It was just surprising. Like when you go to
which ones did you invest in?
So when you go to VR, I did. Box VR and FitX. FitXR runs Box VR, and then YUR is the other one. And
I don't want founders to get mad at you that you're not mentioning your portfolios.
Well, I hope they're not mad either.
Yeah, it's fine. You only invested in 300 companies.
Yeah.
We'll be here all
We
day.
could just sit here listing things off.
All right, go back to VR fitness.
But when you go on VR Twitter, it's all about how many pounds are being lost using the device. And it's hitting a different demographic of person who might not want to go to Equinox. Like they want to play games, but they don't want to go somewhere else.
Have you seen
actively to a different location?
The Black Mirror episode where they're on and they're pedaling and they got to stay pedaling?
No, I haven't.
Oh man, it's basically they're pedaling a real bicycle that's stationary, and they're all in a room and they're essentially enslaved there to some degree, and they're looking on a screen and they have to keep pedaling to like keep the lights on type stuff.
Yeah, I mean we're pretty close to that.
You think so? I'll give my girlfriend a hard time. Like she's got an Apple Watch, and she will literally like. It says stand up, she'll stand up. Like hey, you got to get steps in. Like you got to like compete with your friend.
Don't tell me what to do.
You have to like compete with your friend. Like that's virtual reality to some degree.
It is,
right? Like
no,
this machine is telling you what to do.
There's a digital world that we live in already, and we're just getting closer and closer to being able to see it with our eyes. Like it's already all around us all the time. Like all this data, all this stuff.
Well, Elon will tell you that we're in a simulation anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, now we're building a simulation in a simulation, so.
That's not meta.
Yeah. It's the movie Inception. That's what we're going to be in.
All right. So AR, VR, big deal.
Okay, yes.
I'm a believer. Do you think AR or VR hits mainstream adoption first?
I think VR hits first, and that's contrarian to the market.
Yeah,
so,
why?
Well, okay. Visual AR will not hit until after virtual reality.
Visual AR.
So I'm
okay. All right.
Because
so
I think AirPods are
already here,
and I think they're here. And
dude, I just said iPod. Like, can you imagine if we still had iPods? That'd be crazy.
I mean, we do. It's just digital now. It's all application. It's like
but
one app.
Now we just put like
and
a phone.
we have multiple of that app.
We put a phone app in there.
We have multiple of those though, and I have lots of iPods. I think VR hits first because AR is a very, very difficult technology challenge. It has to recognize the external world and then overlay data on top of that world, where VR literally just needs to replace your world with a digital screen. And they're both difficult, but like I think AR's technology is just it's 3 years behind. Like it's literally the timeline is 3 years behind.
I like this. I'm going to disagree with you.
Okay, perfect. Go.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm not going to tell you why. I'm just going to disagree.
By the way, a lot of people disagree with me.
No.
Lots of people disagree with me.
So I agree with what you just said.
You're not alone. Yeah.
I agree with what you just said, but I think the piece that I would take past that would be, even though the technology is quote unquote worse or not as developed as VR, the method in which it is utilized is more important than the quality of the technology. And it's less scary to engage with AR than it is VR. I fundamentally think that a lot of mass consumers are like, no way I'm putting those goggles on, sitting on my couch and like looking like a loser.
Well, it means that we have to deliver a good enough service.
True.
Yeah.
I just think that the AR,
the AR, and that's why I led with fitness. So fitness being the first of the thing. I haven't even said the other two. The other is the other is training. So training which basically means education. Okay. So we're getting closer and closer to the Matrix. Like I know Kung Fu.
Yep.
That we're there basically.
Do you think Kung Fu is the first training that works?
No, it's enterprise. So training for we have a company called Apex Officer that trains law enforcement, Vantage Point for HR, like different types of training in different. Its context is what is different about the training. And then
oh man, I forget the name of the company, and the founder is going to kill me for this, but in 2015 I met him and he said I'm going to use basically synthetic environments, right, or artificial environments to do interviews. And so it was like if you were a customer support person, they would literally the interview would be, we're just going to put you in this environment, and like bam, somebody just called, bam, now you just got an email, now your boss just sent you an email, like, and you have to like. So just do the job for a day.
Walmart is already training their employees.
Hired is the name. I forget. All right, keep going.
Walmart's already training their employees with virtual reality for Black Fridays.
Really?
Yeah. So
what are they like? They're training Kung Fu for Black Friday.
Yeah, basically, it's Kung Fu for Black Friday. They come out and they go, "I know Kung Fu." They do, because it's a high stress situation.
Yep.
And we as humans, if we experience something multiple times, we become more desensitized to it. So you can be ready for it, and you can do what you feel you should be doing rather than like sometimes the response is fight or flight, and like, that's I guess what they experience on the rig on Black Fridays.
In the Army, we did these like VR simulations, and you put the goggles on or whatever, and you get in like they're almost like skeleton vehicles, so they kind of feel like a vehicle. You're standing like in the gun turret, whatever, and they put you through the simulations, and like I don't know, it's kind of janky, like cartoonish, type content, but like. Hey man, that dude over there on the right side of the screen shooting at you, like you probably should shoot back, right? Or like, hey man, like somebody over the radio just said X, like what are you gonna do?
So I did something really cool in VR recently, which was I've been using it. So I've actually found deals in VR. So
you put on goggles and then you
I like set up meeting times with startups, and I've invested in 3 companies that I met originally in virtual reality in a meeting. And I'd say 3 meetings a week.
You realize that sounds insane?
Exactly.
All right, go ahead.
No, we live in the future.
All right. You're in the future. We're just pulling you back to reality for a second.
Yeah. Just for this podcast, I came back. And I'm from the future. I'm trying to articulate what it looks like. That is a big part of my job, by the way. I have to like retell the stories of like how this technology impacts people. But for me personally, I'm running I took 8 of our VR portfolio companies. I actually haven't even talked about this anywhere, so this is
This is an exclusive. You see what we do off the chain? We get exclusives.
Yeah, you get to hear about the first.
That makes me sound like a reporter, and I couldn't do that.
We're not reporting, but I have taken 8 of our companies who are in our portfolio, already went through an accelerator or we invested in, and every 2 weeks we meet up in VR. And
what do you guys do?
Well, I hold them accountable on numbers and metrics, and then we do what an accelerator does. Like it's a VR accelerator, and we hold them accountable on metrics. And then what ends up happening is we talk around one topic. For instance, like someone brought up, I'm nervous about launching my application. Yeah. So someone else said, I've already launched. This is how Facebook works. For launching, and this is how to become a launch partner. That's information I couldn't have given them, but the group can collaborate and solve the questions.
Basically what you're talking about is rather than use like Google Hangouts and have 6 or 7 people, you're just doing it in VR.
Yes, yes, but is it
better than Google
exponentially
Hangouts?
Better than Google Hangouts. So 1-to-1, I would say they're equivalent. Like if I'm only doing this is okay, Google Hangouts or in VR. Like it works both ways. But in collaborative environments where you need to work on a whiteboard or you have to solve a difficult problem, getting into a room together, it's the difference between this and Google Hangouts.
Got it.
Like it's difficult to quantify, but I would argue that it's about 5 to 10x better for collaborative environments. So for my situation where I have a group of people who are all talking, it's fantastic, like the group. But I also ran an investor day in VR.
And all the investors had to get in VR?
They had to jump into VR and meet these companies.
Man, that really kind of probably filtered out a bunch of the idiots.
Well, we
couldn't figure it out.
Well, no. So in order to mitigate that risk, I brought them all into our office.
Oh, you did like real reality, and then you did virtual reality.
So we had like this merger of reality VR where the investors were on one side and the companies were on the other side of the virtual reality.
Did you see the photo of Zuck walking into F8 and everyone's got on the thing? Like, was it kind of like that?
It was so I didn't have that many people.
Okay.
But how I set it up was more like investors hang out and have appetizers, and then they can opportunistically jump into headset, and they meet 2 at a time in each headset. It worked really, really well. I'm very happy about it. It was a small scale representation of what I hope to scale out to a bigger audience. It's going to be fun. It's really fun. So that's VR.
VR, AR.
Yeah.
What about the oceans?
Okay, oceans. I'm obsessed with the oceans.
Why?
Okay. Do you want the long story or the short story?
We can do whatever we want. Long story.
Okay. The long story starts at a bachelor party.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Was it yours?
No, it was my brother's.
Okay.
And
will he kill you for telling these stories?
No.
Okay. Well, tell the more extreme story then, so he'll kill you.
Billy, sorry. So I was at a bachelor party, and we were at a bar, and we were playing hot takes.
You said that like you're not supposed to be at the bar.
We were at a bar. But we were playing hot takes. Hot take is like something you believe that the rest of the world would hate you for.
Okay.
Basically.
What was your hot take?
So like, for example, just to give other people an example, like an example would be like Ja Rule is the greatest rapper of all time. Like right now, that would be the hottest take of all time.
You think so?
Yeah, it would be a very hot take because
Why?
Fire Festival,
No,
like
but,
all
no,
that
but,
stuff.
no, but I would argue that's why Fire Festival was Fire Festival because Ja Rule was
because Ja
involved.
Rule, so it makes him. So I would have taken the opposite side of that. So, okay, so that's what I'm saying is that basically Ja Rule,
Like nothing like just barking at people on a CD to get you famous.
Yes, and so so my hot take was that climate change is not a thing.
Jesus.
Okay.
All right.
And so I
appreciate that.
This is why I'm giving you the like full story.
So wait, is this something that you have to believe if you say it?
So you believe it.
Believe it, okay.
But also everyone's just like making fun of each other.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
not a like coordinated game.
I just want to make sure that when the press
read this,
like when they listen to this, they say Adam Draper doesn't believe in climate change.
But I said that, and then what I said was, then my friend almost punched me in the face. Okay.
Okay.
Because he was so he had this visceral reaction. He didn't know anything about climate change, but like everyone got super angry about my reaction to it. And I didn't know anything about climate change. So like I'm not gonna like it was like strictly off of the media telling me it's a thing. I said it's not a thing. We're crypto people. Like I'm a check the facts. So that next year, the next 12 months, I read books. I learned about climate change. I learned about global warming, and
the what do you think now?
Okay, so I think it's a ridiculous debate because it's not even about whether or not the Earth is warming. Which, by the way that we use to measure the data, I don't completely trust, but I do believe that climate change is happening. Okay, but the argument isn't about whether or not it's happening.
But isn't global warming and climate change, they could be the same thing, or they could be different?
Well, they are the same thing. They used a different word to describe the concept.
And again, I'll caveat all this.
Basically, climate change, global warming was the first word everyone used for climate change.
Yeah, but let's just say that the climate was changing the other way. It was getting colder, which I'm not claiming that
it's still,
but that'd be climate change.
That is still about warming. Well, they rebranded global warming because people were arguing about that was their argument against it.
I'm just like 3 years late. Got it.
Yeah, you're 3 years late. But like no one actually checked no one read books. No one checks everything. Everyone just had an opinion, and I like to figure out like where these friction points are. Figure out where the truth is. Right, like that's where discoverers of truth. And so what I did, I'm not going to say that I know for a fact what the truth is, but I believe that the climate is warming or getting more extreme. Let's say getting more extreme, which is what climate change is. They're talking about extremities. But the argument is about really are humans causing it or is it a natural system? So my thought is like, because I believe that climate change is happening. Whether or not it's human caused or not, like we should probably the ocean is the regulator of the Earth's temperature.
Mm-hmm. Many people don't know that.
Yeah, it's the reason that we exist is because there's enough like dissolving of H2O that we don't get hit by the whole heat wave. And CO2 actually doesn't have anything to do with climate. Like very little to do with climate. It's mostly H2O. And so the ocean has a trash heap the size of Texas in the middle of it. So we might as well clean it up to like check it off the box of like human caused climate change.
Okay.
This is the long way of saying, and I don't know if you.
No, I care.
Okay, you care. Thank you. I found the person.
Basically, my name is Adam Draper, and I'm part of Oceans Anonymous.
Yeah. It's a room of one. I go into VR and I go to my Oceans Anonymous meetings every week.
All right, keep going.
But basically, oceans have a huge problem, and the problem is I've lost some people.
Some people dropped off, but then other people are saying very interesting. So there's a couple other Oceans Anonymous.
Well, I care too. Good. The oceans it's a business model problem. Basically, everyone thinks of it as a nonprofit.
Okay.
And naturally, the United States and every country's issue is that no one owns the ocean. Mm-hmm. So our incentive is actually to throw trash in the middle of the water.
Yep.
Everyone's incentive is to throw it in the middle of the water so that it's not our problem. So naturally, it's a tragedy of the commons problem. Mm-hmm. So like naturally, it became a trash heap. So the key is to change the business model of the ocean from a tragedy of the commons thing to a ownership model of the ocean. So what I'm trying to say on this podcast is I own the ocean.
Okay.
It's mine.
And what are you going to do with it? Can I have some?
Well, it's my problem now. Do you want some?
I don't know. What are the problems?
Well,
can I make money?
But there are huge markets in it. So
Okay.
aquaculture is a $250 billion a year market.
What does that word mean?
So fish farming.
Fish farming. Okay, got it.
Fish farming, $250 billion
For
a
normal
year.
people like me, fish farming makes more sense.
And there's no technology infrastructure. It's literally just like...
And we're literally like, just like you would create animals to then eat them.
Yeah.
We're just creating fish
to eat them.
to eat them. Okay,
Yeah,
got
completely. And there are seaweed farms and other farms just like
it. Dude,
vegetables.
okay, hold on, pause. Seaweed farms. Really weird that I know this. I went super deep and I wanted to start a seaweed farm at one point.
I sort of still do.
Okay, we can partner up.
Let's do it.
We'll find some young kid who wants to go play in the ocean and do the seaweed farming. Yeah, hey, there's somebody who's listening to this.
Is anyone gonna
if you want
on
to
this?
if you want to start a seaweed farm, reach out to Adam and
But
I.
continue, seaweed farm.
So there's a kid. The reason why I figured this out was there's a kid I think in Seattle maybe or somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. What he did was he was young, like 16 to 18 years old, started a seaweed farm, and what he was doing was his whole play in the local paper said something like he realized that there was a special type of seaweed that if you grew it, you could then put it into cow feed, and that cow feed could drastically reduce the gas output of the cows, aka cow farts.
So making vegan cows.
Well,
they're already vegans.
Well, kind of, but in the sense of this was just an additive to the food they were already eating, and it drastically reduced the CO2 emission of the cow, which is the cow fart. And there, at one point, and I don't know if this is still people believe this or not, but the cow farts were a major contributor to global warming.
To global warming.
And so his whole thing was one of the best ways to attack global warming is to get cows to stop farting so much, and the best way to do that is you put seaweed from the ocean into the cow feed. Sounds crazy. I looked at it. Wild business, because here's why. Your point about nobody owns the ocean, it's like if you want to start a farm, you got to go buy farmland.
Yeah.
Or you're buying it from somebody.
You don't have
to buy the ocean. Now, sometimes what you can do is you can actually get somebody to pay you to do it because there's all sorts of things around this aquaculture, right, all this stuff. And so I talked to a couple of people, and there's a bunch of very wealthy people around the world, especially in Asia, who are like, oh, I own an island. Like, I'll just go hire, 200 people from my home country, and I'll just get them to farm seaweed.
Completely.
The problem is that the seaweed has to stay fresh till you get it somewhere. And so the whole seaweed farm culture is like very underrated.
And I think it's all
but could be
like
big.
one company. Like right now,
this was like a 16-year-old in a dinghy. Yeah. So like I'm sure that there might be a couple of companies.
Ones, like the seaweed that is crispy around sushi rolls and stuff. I think is like a huge. I think it's like one company makes all the seaweed sushi wraps, basically.
Probably.
Like huge businesses are in the water. Logistics, shipping, carrier freights, all those things, water. There are a lot of problems with the water, and that's why I'm investing in startups that can solve those problems.
So you're talking about surface water, like what's going on the surface, but like what's underneath the ocean? We don't know anything down there.
Yeah, no, there's we have 100% high resolution capture of Mars.
Yep.
And we have only, I think it's 5% of the Earth's seabed at high resolution for pictures. So we actually have higher resolution of Mars photos than of the Earth's water surface.
So we can take better pictures of space than we can of our own
our own planet.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so why is that?
Well, basically, that's a great question.
All I do is great questions.
So my answer to that is just rolling out the great question. My answer to that is I believe in the 50s, JFK and Russia said we're going to space. And over the next 10 years...
I like how just JFK, not the U.S.
It wasn't the U.S., it was just JFK.
Legend.
Well, he said he has the speech that's like, we're going to go to space because we want to. It's a great speech. You should listen to it just for inspiration sometime. But he said in over 10 years, we got to space. And then we got to the moon.
Russia, by the way, they announced their intention to go to space through Twitter bots. All right, go ahead. Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Radio waves.
Yeah, I couldn't resist.
And and so what happened was NASA got an insane amount of funding around the same time though in the early 60s. Yep. They started another program called NOAA, and it has been 1,000x less funded than NASA.
What is NOAA?
So NOAA is the monitoring and observation and research of the seas, basically. And so what I forget what it actually stands for. National Oceanic Association and another A. Or an H. No, it's an A. It's an NOAA. Association.
The Ocean Organization.
And the so basically my answer is underfunded. That's why.
Okay.
So the reason it captured competition and the imagination.
I agree with that.
And so we went and we won. We won the moon. And
do you think we went to the moon?
I do.
Yeah.
I think we went to the moon.
Why?
Well, they have that experiment where they bounce a off of there's a mirror up on the moon or a reflection thing, and they bounce lasers off of it to prove that there's something that is not from. I mean, it means that we could have crash landed there, but like something.
Oh, is there? So there is a mirror that they.
There's there's a Big Bang theory about it.
I asked a guy one time. I like to joke around and be like, oh, we didn't really go. Like, we can't stream Sunday night's football game.
Like, how did we go to the moon?
Yeah, but like, how were we streaming in the '60s live from the moon? Right.
There are like these polarizing situations like that where it's like, there's no way because like. I can't even screw in a light bulb.
Look, I'm obviously joking around, but I did say to one guy, I said, hey, do you believe in, I won't say who it is, but he's hit me with, dude, there's no way we went to the moon. Nobody can show us the flag up there.
Yeah,
I was like, wow.
I mean, that's sort of true. They're like, oh, it's on the dark side. Like, it's over there.
I was like, man, we got an uphill battle to get people to wrap their head around.
But I do think that we have like a land rover on Mars or whatever.
Yeah, of course.
Rover on Mars.
Well, and people don't know about the moon landing. Wasn't just once. It was like 6 times in 4 years or something, right? But it does. The reason why I bring it up is.
But we haven't gone back. Like we haven't really gone back much.
Yeah,
so
after like the 6 times. Yeah,
and it's been 80 years. 70 years, whatever.
Well, here's the crazy part. So like, imagine all the conspiracy theories around just the moon from 60, 70 years ago. To if we land on Mars, oh my God, people are going to be going crazy about every conspiracy theory in the book.
Completely.
Like, that's just VR. Yeah, like that's not real.
Yeah, we're in a simulation.
All right, what is the biggest opportunity in the ocean? Like if you said if one company solves X.
So the biggest enabler of opportunity, which I would argue is the biggest thing, is persistent internet. On the water.
So on the water or under the water?
Both.
Okay.
To enable under and over to be able to communicate. Right now there's a problem where submarines can't really talk to airplanes. Mm-hmm. Like it's a weird problem. There aren't very many people who run into this problem, I will say. But also just
the submarines that can't talk to the airplanes.
but I think of it like if there's a network on the ocean, then suddenly it's going to enable more. Like enable more fishermen to be out there, enable more data to be harnessed. Just like, without GPS, Uber wouldn't have been enabled.
Yep.
Like there are these little technology hurdles, and right now we have internet covered on land pretty well. Mm-hmm. Not everywhere, but pretty well. There's nothing on the ocean. And so in order to get data, like photo, video, whatever data from a buoy offshore to land, it's very expensive. Mm-hmm. So cheapening that will allow for new companies, new stuff. So I would say communications on the
like there's probably some kind of metric of like
I'm just getting water.
Yeah, that's fine. We got that out of the ocean. There's probably something around like the number of connected devices per square mile on land versus the number of connected devices per square mile in the ocean. It's probably like egregiously swayed in one direction.
Oh yeah, and I would also say like. Success based on what? I think that there are a lot of things that could be really, really big businesses. Like, I think the answers to most of humanity's future 50-year problems, like how do we feed 9 billion people? How do we give fresh water to 9 billion people? How do we are answered by the ocean? And like, I think people are blind to it because we're very crypto people will appreciate it. We're very terra maximalist. Like, because we're here, we like have farmed animals. 2014 was the first year that we farmed more fish than we caught, which I would argue on land is like 99.9% of all food is caught. Is farmed. Yep. And so we still have like 49%.
Like we just had the flippening.
Yeah, we had a flippening of the oceans. I'm gonna write that down. That's my next blog post. The flippening of the oceans.
Jesus Christ. Okay. All right. So. The other thing about the ocean that's super interesting is like
we haven't even gotten to crypto.
I don't care about crypto.
Okay, good.
No, but the thing about the ocean that is is kind of fascinating to me. It's just not only do we not know anything, but then it seems like every time somebody goes and does something crazy in the ocean, we figure stuff out and we're like, whoa, what the hell was that?
Yeah.
Like, did you, who's the billionaire guy who, I think he's a billionaire, maybe he's a multimillionaire, who he keeps going to the depths of the ocean, like the deepest points of the different seas?
James Cameron is one.
Yeah, so he's the movie guy, right?
Yeah, he's the movie guy.
And did Aquaman?
Then, there's another guy who runs a company in Seattle who's built he's trying to make it a tourist
No. There's a guy, I think he's not from the U.S., and he keeps going down in these one-man submarines.
Yeah.
And is just like,
awesome.
I went to the deepest part of the Indian Ocean. And people are like, what? And he's like, yeah, you guys are trying to go to space. I went to the ocean.
Yeah,
like,
no.
The floor. Like, I touched the floor of the Indian Ocean.
I think there is a segment of people who are sort of like, why are we going to space? Mm-hmm. Like, I think I'm doing both. Like, I've backed space companies too. But, like, I also do have hey, why go against gravity? We could use gravity as the energy source to get us things down there. And by creating an ownership model in the ocean, like showing that you can make money in the ocean, I actually think the trash heap naturally will clean itself up. So, long story short, I am the solution to climate change.
Dude. Not what I thought you were going to say. You want to know one of the things that fascinates me that people don't know?
What?
Is the underwater cables.
Yes.
Like, people have no clue. They just think, like, it's magic. Like, yeah, I just used this internet thing, and it just, like, flew around the world real quick.
There's a great book called The Victorian Internet.
The Victorian Internet? Okay.
Yeah.
What's that about?
Basically, it's about the first people laying cables to create the telegraph lines between Europe and the U.S., and how they failed 4 times. And this guy was the... it's not Morse, the Morse guy who created Morse code. It's not him, but there was a predecessor who laid the cables to make this happen, and how it was his just like quest to make sure that we connected Europe and the U.S. I mean, they're these big cables. Like, they're huge.
Like, dude, you ever been in the ocean? Like, it's this pretty big place.
Yeah, like they're huge, and they're also like thick. They're like huge freaking cables.
Yeah.
And just think about, like, when one of those cables goes out, it's like how much progress is lost.
Oh, yeah, devastating.
Yeah, and how really, if you figure out where it is, like, that's a huge insurance problem. Like, that's trillions of dollars that are just, like, down, like, in every country. Not only the U.S.
Well,
it's
national security stuff, too, right? Like,
oh, yeah.
You could imagine that if all of a sudden we or somebody else knew where ours were, or we knew where theirs were, and all of a sudden they decided, hey, I'm just going to go cut this.
Well, also blow
it up.
The Victorian Internet also talks about how the telegraph led to the first level of hackers, where people were like creating coded messages and decoding them because of it's just fascinating. It's fascinating stuff.
We'll have to read it. What's the one thing that you're excited about in space?
In space?
Yeah.
I'm really excited about software.
Why?
In space.
Why?
Because it's not there.
Okay, explain it.
So basically, I'm going to reference one of our companies, but there's a company called CubeOS.
You can show whatever you want.
Yeah, well, I'm shilling. But there's a company called CubeOS, and what they do is basically they saw that he was working at a company called Spire that was a satellite, micro satellites, the small satellite manufacturer, and it's a big company. And he realized
small satellites.
all these hardware engineers were building the software for this device. And he was like, this doesn't make any sense. So he created an open source community that was for space software, which is wild. There is an open source space software community. And then he realized that it's difficult to test software in space. So every satellite has basically the same sensors. So they have, it's like what's the red sensor and the lasers and heat and like they have basically 7 sensors. And then but they all coordinate differently, just like a computer. A computer has basically all the same pieces, but there's an operating system that ties them all together. They're trying to be the Android of this space, but they also can be sort of the AWS. And so they are actually live on 2 satellites right now where people can test their software.
That's pretty cool.
In space.
Dude, there was about 24 months ago, there was a bunch of these space companies that all started to build stuff. Like, they were doing scientific testing on the ISS. They were doing all this stuff. and that was big when it was mining asteroids.
Yeah.
Got really like everyone was talking about that, and then also if you looked into space manufacturing.
Oh, super cool.
Like people are going to send up stuff, they're going to manufacture in space and then send it back down to Earth.
What you can do is you can build enormous things because it's just floating out there. So like 3D printing in space is going to like the killer app of 3D printing is really space manufacturing. It is not on land. Well, it's iterative processing, I guess, or houses. I'm really excited about 3D printed houses.
Same.
Yeah, because you could give a house. Like, you know, the Tom Shoes?
Yep.
You could give a house by buying a house.
But the other piece of it that's interesting is not only how fast it can be built, how efficiently, right, in terms of cost they can be built, but also I think that it changes the way, if you know that you're going to move into a 3D house, you immediately are okay with lower expectations in terms of the square footage you need.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like it completely changes the way that people think about their home, and we go from, I need a basketball court in my house, and that would be really sweet, to, hey, you know what, like I'm pretty okay living in this 3D printed house because it's cool, I can talk about it, blah, blah, whatever. It's like a new age type of quote-unquote wealth, but without the price tag.
Completely. No, I think I think they're going to be reasonably priced, and I think you really don't need that much space. That's what, like...
Yeah.
I mean, at Boost, we do provide housing, and the accommodations are not huge. It's like a dorm room.
Bigger or small? Okay, dorm room.
It's like a dorm room, and it has bunk beds. And so these teams are literally stacked on top of each other.
Do you have a lottery for who gets top, who gets bottom?
That's a brilliant idea. We should actually do that.
Just do it in VR, though.
Maddie,
I don't know who you are, but I just gave you an idea. I want royalties.
Maddie, we should do that.
All right, so crypto, this thing that you were supposed to come here and talk about.
I'm here.
So first of all,
well, I already talked about Brian Armstrong. So
we just suckered people in with the Brian Armstrong story to then let them listen to space and oceans.
Yeah, you're like, oh well, he invested in Coinbase.
So I have a couple of questions. One, your father, Tim Draper, always tells a story about how he initially got excited about digital currencies with a son asking to buy a sword. Was that you?
So no, he's actually telling a tangential story of he was in, I believe it was in Korea, and there's this game that 25% of the country was playing called like Legends. And he was being told by someone that their son, his gift for Christmas was a $1,000 sword. Jeez. Or like $1,500 sword or something.
Expensive sword in a game.
But this was pre-crypto, pre-digital currencies, and it was
if I'm clear, it's like early 2000s.
Early 2000s, and my dad started realizing that not only software was going to be expensive in the digital world, it's also going to be like items. Like you can develop value of things in a digital world depending on how much time you're spending in those places. And so I think that was his deep-seated like thought. That kept through when cryptocurrencies started to pop up. He did. So we always debate about which of us invested in a crypto company first.
So this is what I was going to get to, because if I remember correctly, he passed on Coinbase, or he didn't invest and you did?
So yes.
Okay.
He invested in a company called Coin Lab before me.
Coin Lab.
Okay.
All right.
Which is no longer around. And
that was an L for him.
Yeah, and I did Coinbase, and then I brought it to him, and I said, "You should do this deal." And he and someone else were like, "No, we already have one. Like we got one. They're not going to be. It's a winner take all, whatever." And I'm making my dad was actually very enthusiastic. I'm making it sound like he was the one saying that. My dad's never the one saying that. He's like a crazy positive person. But he did think like, okay, we have one. Like if it's not a winner take all, they'll do well. But he also at the same time, it was a mining company, and we both put in a purchase order for future mined Bitcoin. Of a significant amount of Bitcoin at the time, because the price of Bitcoin was like $5 to $30. Like that was basically the range, and they never delivered on that account, which led my dad to actually buy the U.S. Marshall coin.
Got it.
Because it was that many Bitcoin that he was supposed to have, and so he bought it at a much more expensive price later.
The Marshall story is crazy. But but the fact that you invested in Coinbase first and he didn't is you get the last laugh.
Well, Marshall Coin, not a bad investment. He called me that morning and he said. He called me. I was on my way to work. I was going to turn on the El Camino. You guys need to know these details. These are important details.
Yeah, of course.
About where I was, what mindset I was in. They
don't have virtual reality. This is the next best thing.
I was listening to Taylor Swift in my Jeep, and
what song?
The Shake It Off, just to get in the right mindset. And then followed by Tim McGraw, and then my dad called me, and literally he didn't even say like, "Hey, it's Dad." He said, "Should I do it?" And I didn't know what that meant. I was like, I have no context. I'm just driving to work. And he said, "Should I do it?" I said, "I do what?" And he said, "Should I put it in my bid for the Marshall coin, the U.S. Marshall coin?" He made the assumption that everyone was going to bid under the market price, and so he bid over. And I was like, if I could, I would, because I'm like such a true believer, and like we're in a weird spot in the market. It feels like a good time. And so he hung up on me. I didn't know he was going to buy the whole thing. I thought it was going to be like, I'm putting in a bid for some, you could have put it in a bid and bought like a certain amount. And like he bought the whole cart. And the next like 5 days, and I didn't find that out until like the next 2 days later when it was released everywhere in media. Like it was just all over, and I was like, "You put
the whole thing?
You got the whole thing? Would have been nice to get the heads up." But
and also pray that we're right. If you're right, you're a legend. If not, oh man.
Yeah. And then I gave him the advice. I was like the final say. Like if I said no, like he probably would have second guessed. He might have still gotten it, but he might have second guessed his thought. So that's the Marshall coin.
So what's your thoughts on crypto today?
Crypto's awesome.
Why
today? I think I don't think I've been this excited about crypto.
Are you
ever?
Wait, hold on. Let's get your affinities on the table first.
Okay.
Bitcoin, believer, non-believer?
Believer.
Big believer?
Yeah.
Like global reserve currency 100 years from now, believer, or
like I'm not against okay, first I believe that if the impossible can happen, so like could Bitcoin be disrupted? Yes.
I agree with that.
To date, I believe Bitcoin will be a global reserve currency.
Okay, I agree with that too. Timeline? And obviously the timeline isn't, don't hold them to it.
Please do. Hold me to it.
No, what do you think it is? 20 years? 50 years?
So what I do say, there are two predictions. So one is I say in the next 15 years, 10 years actually, I say 10 years, there will be more digital currency than fiat. Okay. Okay. Value of digital currency.
Isn't there already more XRP?
No, I'm
kidding. I'm kidding.
Okay. Then you're gonna be delirious state. Okay, but so I believe that to be true in the next 10 years. Global reserve currency, I think things happen fast when they happen, but I still think it's 25 years. Like I think reasonably, trust is being built right now. It's going to work for certain like cultures, certain nations, certain places. I think Bitcoin works the way the internet works, where it's like I don't talk about the internet. Like I just talk about using products on the internet. Yeah. And so like I think Bitcoin works when I can just buy things using. Maybe it's U.S. dollars. Maybe the denomination is something else.
I always joke and say like the U.S. dollar is digital currency.
Yeah.
Right. It's what 7% is in physical coins or notes. Like the rest of it's digital.
They type in more numbers on a. All
right. What about Ethereum?
I would love to know how that actually works. Ethereum. I believe that there are going to be different protocols for different things. Like I think you might. I do think Lightning's going to work. I think we will be able to use. I think scale is not going to be a problem.
Hold on. We got to go slow because I'm not smart. So Bitcoin believer, Lightning. Why do you think it's going to work?
So why I think Lightning's going to work?
He's talking about Lightning.
So the same reason that I thought Bitcoin was going to work, like there are really, really smart people building really, really great things.
It's probably the best execution we're seeing in crypto behind maybe Binance.
I mean, I think it's just good. Like, I think Lightning's just like at the end.
How do people make money if Lightning works? Like what are the ways that you think about if Lightning works as a layer 2 scaling technology? The places to invest will be blank. What's blank?
Well, then it becomes sort of like how to be a gateway for either real world things or natively digital things. So I would probably, if that just all of a sudden happens, I would probably invest in VR meets crypto, like assets in that world. I believe non-fungible tokens are undervalued like crazy.
Why?
The reason is I believe that most opportunity lies in regulatory uncertainty. So crypto was a good example. Oceans is a good example.
There are no laws on the ocean.
And I think that non-fungible tokens are going to walk this line where they aren't an asset. It would be the equivalent of regulating like Beanie Babies, which is a ridiculous concept. And I think that NFTs are going to be able to get through all the regulatory like fear and allow the end consumer to use crypto without using crypto. And so like I think that suddenly we're all going to be using these assets, these digital assets that represent like a kitty or a whatever, when really it's paving the education gap to denominating this entire building in a cryptocurrency, like being able to auction off pieces of this building. And it's really about education at that point.
Do you think that the NFTs, like what's the timeline to get through the regulatory uncertainty? Are we talking like
I mean,
12 months or 10
I think
years?
It's more about like we just need a good use case for we need a good game. We haven't seen good yet. I haven't seen good yet. Like I think
see, NFTs to me are the perfect example of great idea, wrong time.
I'm not farting. I just moved.
The chairs are really noisy.
Squeaky. It's a squeaky chair. It's good audio room though. This is a good audio room.
Yeah, it's fine. We have experts in the room, not me.
But yeah, no, I think NFTs are just undervalued because.
But do you think they're too early?
No, I think you could build a good game. Like you need to. People need to stop thinking that they're starting at the end. Like I just want someone who really truly wants to build out a great. What's the game? Magic the Gathering game on the blockchain, and then fiddle with the blockchain as a tool that creates new gamified experiences.
Yep.
Like I think a lot of people think like they launch and then everyone uses it, and like I mean that's obviously not true. Like I think the most used product is CryptoKitties in the crypto space, Bitcoin, but CryptoKitties in the actual non financial space.
What do you think governments are going to do? How do they play? Forget not regulators like security, not a security, but like what do central banks do, etc.
Okay, so I'm going to give you two worlds.
All right.
The first world is my fair to the banking system world. I believe all I really truly want are better services. Like at the end of the day, that's all I want.
All the user cares about is can you help me do what I want to do?
Yeah, yep. I just like when I want my money, I want my money. When I want to pay for something, I want to pay for something. I don't care if it's the bank or Bitcoin. It's just the bank has developed such poor service that they forgot who their customer was. And then on the other side, Bitcoin is developing more trust. Even though it started as like a drug dealing tool, it's developing more and more trust where people just rely on it. 24/7 uptime for 10 years is something that no one has been able to exceed.
So my whole theory here is that people trust machines and algorithms more than they trust humans. And inherently, banks are run by humans, the financial system is run by humans, but Bitcoin is run by an algorithm
completely
that just can't fail.
And back to this,
and can't is just like there could be security concerns, could be 51% attacks, all that, but like the way that it is programmed is it never goes down.
And back to the persistence, like things don't really get flipped on until persistence happens. Like Bitcoin is a persistent currency. Like there are no bank hours. Yep. Like it's not. I'm relying on my bank to be open. That's not a persistent money. Like that's a choppy money. I can only access my money for these hours. That's a ridiculous concept.
Well, the stock market's closed more hours a week than it is open, all that kind of stuff, right? But the best example of Bitcoin is so Venezuela the power grid went down. The grid went down, and everyone on the internet's been all up in arms about this idea that like people are saying, oh, Venezuela's power grid going down shows the power of Bitcoin. They're like, how the hell can you use Bitcoin without the power, right? But what a number of Venezuelans have posted different stories on Reddit, et cetera, is look, the power grid was down. The banking system was down. I have a generator. I turned my generator on. I could not use the legacy system. I could not go on my website for the bank. I could not go to the ATM. I couldn't do anything, even though I have power, but the power grid is down.
And because they could do that.
But with Bitcoin, all I have to do is I just have to hit the network. And as long as I have power, doesn't matter if anybody else in my country has power, I can still access my money because I can hit the Bitcoin network.
Persistence. I think persistence is more value. Like I think people don't because by it being there, you can develop trust in it, and I think that's why Uber is this persistent. It delivers certainty. Like I know when the car's coming around the corner. I know that's something like. This next generation doesn't know that we had to blindly wait for cars or taxis. We had to hope that someone was going to show up, and then eventually you get a call that's like, oh, we're like 30 minutes out, and you're like, well, I'll go back inside. I think that's like crazy. There's so much transparency, so much certainty. I think persistence. I think that's the power of Bitcoin. Persistent money, accessibility if there's energy.
I think that's fair. What do you think are the one or two companies that somebody should build in crypto that you haven't seen yet?
Okay, the things I'm excited about right now, that's sort of like asking me what I'm excited about.
Yeah, you just took the question and asked your own question. Go ahead. It's your podcast.
I mean, what should they build? Okay, build the craziest possible thing.
Like what's the craziest possible thing you could imagine somebody building right now?
First, you have to start with the word global.
I'm going to send you a pitch deck with just the word global on
it. Ready? This is it.
Go ahead.
An ocean city.
An ocean city.
Built with the economies denominated in Bitcoin.
Okay.
That would be the craziest thing I could think of right
now.
An
ocean city, I've actually seen people pitch this before, which is basically something that floats in the ocean and acts almost like an island, but it's a standalone city.
Standalone city.
And all of the commerce that's done is done
on the
with
city.
A single global currency called Bitcoin,
which connects them to the rest of the world.
Okay.
So that would be one of the craziest things. But if we're talking about like applications, I think that
somebody's going to tweet at us and be like, "I'm building a city in the ocean. Will you come visit?"
I hope so.
Yeah, but it depends on
crypto portfolios are already underwater.
That was good. Somebody on the live stream just said crypto portfolios are already underwater. That's perfect.
We're already building the digital land of the ocean. I would say, so what I'm really excited about right now are user interfaces. So like I think that I was drawing this to a other thing.
Oh man, you look like my notebook. You just draw a bunch of stuff,
and it looks like I use it. You can't read it.
Yeah, you can't read any of the words, and then you just look at people like, "Did you get it?"
But I think that it's like the power of decentralized services is the difference. First, the difference is basically like centralized services. Let's take iTunes App Store, the App Store, the Apple App Store, for instance. We interact with a user interface. That interface is governed by a process at Apple. And then that is built on top of the internet. That is a open Rails. The difference between that is completely controlled by Apple, that entire process. Now, in the decentralized world, the governance system and the user interface are separated. So suddenly, Augur could build their own interface. But I think what we're learning is that they should just work on like different dApps. That's the dApp layer, the governance layer. The peer-to-peer network should be building their peer-to-peer network, which is smart contracts and
so you're basically making the argument
stuff.
that there shouldn't be vertical integration, but Augur should work on the protocol, and then things like Veil should come along and build the interface on top.
Or Guesser. But
Guesser. Okay. Did you invest?
I did.
Okay.
Is
it better?
They're different. They're different.
You're an animal. You're a politician.
But I genuinely do think they're different.
Okay.
Well,
but that's a
and I'm not an investor in Veil, but I'm also saying like they're just different. They're going to end up going after different markets.
But it's two separate interfaces using the same protocol.
Using the same protocol that's built on top of using the same dApp that's built on the same protocol. Okay. So like the stack today is Ethereum on the protocol. The dApp layer is Augur, and then the interface is Veil or Guesser. You're gonna see this stack replicated over a bunch of different
Do you think that,
networks.
so let's call that fragmentation, right, of the stack. Do you think that the fragmentation has to happen first before then we can get vertical integration? Or is it likely to happen? Forget if it has to, but is it likely to happen?
I mean, I think what we're going to learn is like smart contracts might have their own protocol, and the way that people use those I'm sorry, not their own protocol. Like Ethereum might have a bunch of different smart contracts layers. Augur is specifically for prediction markets. So gambling and is a great use case. Global gambling is like, why crypto? I want to be able to bet $1 million against someone who's in Africa. Like, you couldn't do that today. Like, you could not figure out how to do that.
I love how like the elites call professional gambling investing. So it's still gambling, right? Like if you really think about it, like if you buy that building, you are taking a probability bet that you're going to make money off of
more
it.
Time and value will be going into that after you buy.
That's still gambling, right?
Still gambling.
Yeah. But it's just less risky, we claim.
Yeah, it is.
Unless you're buying in 2007.
You can have a hand in the outcome, but in gambling, you can probably have a hand in the outcome. So most of the time. Unless it's literally just craps or, well, you can learn the game. You can learn the odds. So I think gambling is going to be a good first use case because it was a good first use case with Bitcoin. Like it was a fantastic use case. Like there are still Bitcoin related casinos built on the internet that are not supposed to be accessed by the US, but people VPN in and then they gamble.
Yeah, somebody on the live stream is from VPNing from Iceland.
I can neither confirm nor deny whether or not I have done it. Okay. But in general, I think that also, by the way, my interface concept completely relates to Coinbase. Coinbase is an interface that interacted originally just with Bitcoin, which is built on the blockchain. Like, I think there is a separation, but they are the same. They are interwoven so tightly.
And does the most value accrue to the protocol, to the dApp, or to the interface?
So I think personally, I do think the protocol generates value. Like it's going to generate a lot of money. It's going to be a big deal. You will make money if you hold that protocol. However, I believe that the closest to the consumer makes the most money.
Okay. So the farther you get away from the protocol.
The farther you get away, the less money you make.
The farther you get away from the consumer, the less money you make.
Yes.
Or another way to think about it is if there are multiple layers stacked on top of the protocol, the farther you get away from the protocol, the more money you'll make.
Yes. So the farther away from the protocol. So it's actually a little contrarian in the market is like I think that the UI ends up being the winner. But it might get super fragmented. So you might be able to, there are going to be 1,000 UIs that are Augur on top of Ethereum. Like there could be 1,000. That are used for different things. Like we'll verticalize in different ways.
I definitely agree with you, and I think that owning equity in those companies is going to be way more valuable than owning tokens over a long period of time. Especially because there's a higher probability than not that the most important protocols are already built. Now, which ones are they is a whole other situation.
I'm certain. I always think disruption can happen, but I am certain that the ones that builders are building on, it's the stuff that's there. People just want to build, and so like Ethereum is being used and built on. Bitcoin is being used and built on. Like people are trying the things that are tried and true because the market's there. Like they don't want to build an app on something that doesn't have any velocity. Like if there's no velocity, like why?
I agree with that. What's the one thing that you would change in crypto if you could?
I would say
other than own more Bitcoin.
Yeah, I would stack that up. The one thing I would change is not the speculation. I actually think the speculation did a service to the market.
Agreed.
I would change. I want people to see the actual value though. Like I think it would just be like better education. That's what I would say. Is like I think. People went in because they saw money and they know they're supposed to make money. Like that's a thing in humans. Like we're supposed to make money, so there's money there. Let's go to it. I would much rather people be building towards like their own personal mission, and if crypto overlaps with it, they build with that. So it's an education thing rather than. I think there's so little good education, and it does take time. And buying crypto helps, where you have skin in the game, like to educate yourself on it. But I would love just better financial education as well as in crypto. It helps you understand how incentives work, and then it helps you understand, like, at the end of the day, it makes better services. And so, like, it almost has nothing. If I could change one thing, I want the words blockchain, crypto, and Bitcoin to go away, and I want people to be using them.
Yeah, I completely agree. Look, we talk about a lot. We're moving to a digital world, and you need digitally native assets, you need digitally native accounting, you need digitally native contracts.
And the winners are the gateways right now. So it's
and by the way, we didn't just use blockchain or crypto in any of that.
Yeah, and in a digital world, you need to immerse yourself in it, which is virtual reality.
That's fair. In the ocean.
Yeah, and then you need an ocean that has Bitcoin native population.
All right, rapid fire to end this thing.
Fantastic.
Because I have to go pretend to be an adult and do other things.
I probably do too. What time is it?
Well, you probably have like a meeting or something. I don't know. We've been talking for like 6 hours. What's the most important company in crypto?
We've been talking for so long. Okay, but you say it again.
What's the most important company? What's the most important company in crypto?
Most important. No wonder we covered so much leg room. The most important company in crypto is Coinbase.
That's usually the second most important company, I say, after Facebook. But why do you say Coinbase? Just because it's the interface and brought so many people on?
Yeah, I just think they legitimize the space. Like, I think people don't give Brian specifically enough credit for what he had to do and how much value he's delivered to the market by educating institutions, by educating investors, and building a product that was the easiest way to get in. I would also say on the other side, on the jurisdictional arbitrage side, I would say Binance is really important. So I would actually, third is Facebook.
Third? My whole thing is just they've got the users. Whatever they give to people,
people are going to have.
Good, bad, indifferent.
I think
it's going to be a billion plus people for interaction.
I think we were going to be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, completely agree.
By the Facebook token.
Do you think it's going to be decentralized?
I mean, ish. Like, I think that they will have steps towards decentralization.
Okay, that's fine.
That's what my guess would be. I would guess that it's built in a way.
So I would say that it's going to be more decentralized than people are anticipating.
Yeah, I bet. I believe that this is their true. This is David Marcus's mission. He wants this to exist, and he's true about it. I do think that Facebook wouldn't build something if they're not going to control a piece of it. Like
that's where I actually disagree. I think that they can control a lot of the infrastructure and interfaces and stuff.
So they're thinking,
but the actual currency itself,
it could be the glue that sort of interacts with everything. Yeah. They would single-handedly be the biggest nation on the planet that has their own native currency.
Like, look, I worked at the company. I'm biased. I'll throw it all out there, right? But the one thing that I know about that group of people, they're not playing for second place.
Yeah.
Right? Like they're going to go try to change the world and do some just epic stuff.
Well, you're saying we're building a digital world. Like, we could argue that Facebook already did build it, and that there is no native currency there yet, and now there is one. And
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I also think Twitter's going to play a big role. Like, I mean, it does.
Yeah, Jack's killing it.
As far as communicating with Twitter people, like crypto people, and he's openly made just incredible moves towards making more leaders of the world excited about Bitcoin. Like, when I
Jack made Bitcoin cool.
Yeah, when I go to these meetings with you do this too, but in endowments, foundations, institutions, like, it's no longer like I'm not investing in crypto. It was default no for a really long time. Now it's I'm going to. How am I going to?
It. Yep.
And their questions are much more around, like, how should we allocate? Not so it's smart. It's good questions. It's not about how it works anymore.
Yep.
And they have a infection in every group. Like, there's one.
Yeah. The virus has spread.
The virus spread.
Somebody.
The virus infected like somebody, and they're just obsessive about it in every single group.
We should go and pitch institutions together and like just go dress like this, and I'll be like, dude, he's so smart. He's so smart.
So I've learned this can be one of my last lines if you want it to be, but I've learned that there are two types of people in this world.
Okay.
The people who accept the person who wears orange pants, and the people who do not.
And that's their problem, right?
and that's on them. And so it's like, I'm just being as me as possible in the meetings.
Yeah.
And I'm not. I'm just.
Do people like? Is there like a visceral reaction to the orange pants?
No, it's just always like, is this person taking it seriously enough? And so like, there's a little bit of an uphill battle explaining myself sometimes. But like, in general, it's more. The first question they always ask is, how many pairs do you have?
Yeah, and how many?
Well, 2.
2. How many days have you been wearing this pair?
4 in a row.
4 in a row? That's not that bad.
It was my trip to New York.
Yeah, like sometimes I wear the same socks like 7 days in a row, whatever.
Yeah, well, socks, man.
I'm kidding.
Socks. I
thought you were just going to roll with that. I was going to be really worried. I thought you were going to be like, actually, I wore mine one time 8 days.
I don't know why I'm that way about socks.
Nah,
but
socks
I really don't want to wear.
You can't wear
twice.
socks 2 days in a row. No, that across the
They get a little.
pants
gross.
are fine, whatever. Even t-shirts would be a little weird.
I'll admit, I go into my when my dirty laundry is like overwhelming. I'll go into the dirty socks and like pick them out if I'm out of socks.
Yeah. You have clean or dirty socks on right now?
These are clean.
These are clean.
Yeah,
Good job.
I only pack clean socks, so we're good on socks.
All right, what's the most important book you've ever read?
So depends on stage of my life. I would say overall, I reread Harry Potter, and I think it captures the imagination in a way. One of my biggest fears is that people's imaginations are dying, and one of the vehicles I use to try to change that is through investing in companies that are going crazy and doing things. And then on the I would say so Harry Potter, and then on the other side, I think essentialism came at a perfect time for me personally, where I was becoming very overwhelmed with a lot of different things, family and work, and and it helped me just focus on the right things at the right time. So I would say those are the 2 that are on the top of my head that, like, as far as impact on my life, those 2.
Are aliens real?
I have so many thoughts. You're asking me like the deep questions now.
Yeah, come on. We got 5 minutes.
First
aliens
off,
real, and then you could ask me a question. Then we're done.
First off, if we go to a planet, we are aliens.
Okay, that's fair.
So aliens are real.
Yeah. Well, only if we go to a planet. But,
yeah.
But do you count the moon as a planet?
No, it's a what are they called? I wish I had the word on the top of my head. So my answer is, I'd like to believe. Did you see the story that like there was they feel that there was a spaceship?
Yeah. And by the way, it's a Harvard professor.
A Harvard professor.
Yeah, we've talked about it a couple
there was
times
a real
on
spaceship.
Here. I need a alien expert to come on and debunk my beliefs or prove them correct, because I'm at the point now where
you're full alien.
I mean, look, again, you can go the math argument and just be like, come on. But
I mean, you've talked to crypto people. How can you not believe in aliens?
You want to know the craziest thing that I've read about space? Because now everyone sends me the space stuff. Right? Like, oh, this guy's weird. Like, here, they read this thing. And they always DM it to me from an anonymous accountant.
By the way, this is the best brand you can have. The best brand you can have is like, you like crazy stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm all in on crazy. Just ask my girlfriend. But the part that is just blew my mind was there's 2 galaxies right now that are colliding, and they can see this or something. And I actually don't remember what happens when 2 galaxies collide. And they go, and by the way, our galaxy is going to collide with those 2
other galaxies.
Well, those 2 other galaxies in 4 billion years. And I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. Like, the idea of 2 planets colliding would be pretty scary. Like, if we were just like, yo, Mars, what's up? Bam, just like bumper cars, right? Yeah. What happens when galaxies collide?
Good title to an album.
Bono.
When galaxies collide. Shotgun for that band name. I think things would be different.
Yeah,
would be my answer.
So that, like, that's the stuff for when space. It's just like, come on, if there's other galaxies colliding out there and all this stuff, there's got to be aliens. Like we.
So no, I believe that there are aliens.
Okay, all right.
I actually go back and forth on parallel universes too, but like I don't know.
Where are you today?
I don't need to confess like how incredibly weird I am on this podcast. Fine. I don't think.
I'm just gonna change the name of the podcast to Weirdos. And just play.
I appreciate enthusiasts.
Yeah. Okay. Enthusiasts. Okay. Yeah. Rest of the world weirdos. Yeah. What one question do you have for me?
Okay. What is the biggest adventure you have ever been on?
The biggest adventure? In 2015, on 12 hours notice, I booked a flight to Medellin, Colombia by myself. I went, landed, didn't know where I was staying, got an Airbnb, said to the host, like, hey man, what's there to do around here? I read that this is one of the like top 25 up and coming destinations. And it's like, there was an arbitrage between everyone thought it was super unsafe because of all like the narco stuff, all stuff, but it actually was like one of the safest places now because they've really cleaned it up. And he was like, oh, there's a bunch of things to do, blah, 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 whatever. And one of those things was to go see, what is his name? Not El Chapo, the Narcos guy.
Narcos guy?
Yeah. What is it? What is the dude's name?
I'm blanking on his name.
It's called Hacienda Napoles is the name of the place. And
Pablo
Escobar. Yeah. Thank you. The internet finally.
I knew that we were going to get it.
Pablo Escobar. So you can go to Pablo Escobar's compound. It's like an hour and a half, 2 hours out. You take this bus, and then you kind of walk up there, and it was wild because like you're literally in the backwoods of Colombia, walking around Pablo Escobar's thing, and there is a federal prison that they have built, and literally the people are in like fenced cages, and you can see them. And I just remember being like, standing there in a moment, and just being like, whoa, what did I do? Like, how did I get here?
Those are the best. Wandering.
Yeah, and I just remember, like, it was just every day for, like, a week. I just woke up, like, what do I want to do today? Bam, just went and did it. And it was a lot of fun. And so since then, that led to, I've done a bunch of these now. Like, I went to Israel.
So it sparked you to do this more.
My brother and I went to India for 2 weeks and just do things like, hey, man, let's stop taking Ubers. Like, you want to just rent motorcycles? He was like, I never driven one before. And so we rented motorcycles in this busy Indian village or city.
Oh my gosh.
And he's driving around.
Traffic is just
unbelievable.
Ridiculous.
First time he ever drove a motorcycle. So stuff like that is just like, look, it's just like you're in charge of your own life. Like either you're going to get the shit done or you're not. And like you're going to have some fun along the way. So whatever. Are you ready? I'm going to leave you with a quote.
Okay.
Pat McNamara went on Joe Rogan's podcast recently.
Yeah.
And I heard this quote and it's just seared in my brain.
Okay.
He hit him with, every night is Saturday night. Every morning is Monday morning. I was like, man, what a legendary life motto to live by.
Well, isn't it Anthony Bourdain? My body is a carnival or something like that. Like just live life to the fullest.
Yeah, just do whatever you want. All right, man. This is a absolute pleasure. I had a fun time. I can't even talk anymore. We've talked so much.
We talked a lot. I did not realize.
We went over an hour and 37 minutes.
Were we supposed to go less?
No, we're supposed to just go until you get tired of talking. You have a lot of text messages, by the way. All right, we're gonna stop recording.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm only like 30 minutes late for my next thing. This was great. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.